A sick old dog had lost all hope. But what did this little cat do next? No one saw it coming. Max had been the heart of the Thompson family for nearly 13 years. A strong, gentle Labrador. He had once filled the house with life, his tail thumping against the floor, his paws clicking on the hardwood as he followed his family from room to room. He was the kind of dog who never let anyone feel lonely, always pressing his warm nose into their hands when they were sad, curling up by their feet during late-night movies, and trotting beside them on every adventure. But age is a cruel thief. At first, the changes were subtle. He took a little longer to stand up in the mornings, his once playful sprints became slow strolls, and he started sleeping more than usual. The Thompson family convinced themselves it was just old age. After all, Max was still eating, still wagging his tail. Then, one day, he stopped. His food bowl remained full. His tail barely moved. His once bright eyes grew dull. And the worst part? He no longer greeted them at the door. The dog who had once leapt with excitement at the sound of keys now barely lifted his head when they walked in. A trip to the vet confirmed their fears. "His arthritis is getting worse," the vet explained, gently running a hand along Max's stiff joints. "And his heart is weakening. He's not in pain yet, but..." He hesitated. Some dogs, when they get older, they just stop fighting. It's like they know their time is running out. The words hit the Thompsons like a brick. Jake, the father, clenched his jaw, blinking back tears. Emily, the mother, swallowed the lump in her throat. And their daughter, Lily, who had grown up with Max since she was 5, wrapped her arms around his neck and whispered, "Please don't go yet, buddy." They tried everything to lift his spirits. New, softer beds, warm compresses for his joints, even spoon-feeding him his favorite treats. Nothing worked. Max wasn't just sick, he was giving up. And then came Oliver. The scrappy gray tabby was a stray who had been lingering outside their neighborhood cafe, stealing scraps from the back alley and darting away whenever anyone got too close. He was cautious but smart, one of those cats who had survived on instinct alone. Lily had been the one to find him on a particularly cold evening, curled up under a table outside the cafe. His fur was matted, his ribs faintly visible under his sleek coat, but his green eyes were sharp, watching, calculating. It took her days to gain his trust, but once she did, Oliver made himself right at home. He wasn't just a survivor, he was a ruler, walking through the house like he owned it, perching on the highest furniture, swatting at anyone who dared ignore him. But what no one expected was his fascination with Max. The very first night, Oliver ignored his plush new cat bed entirely. Instead, he padded across the living room, hopped onto the large dog bed, and curled up right against Max's side. Max barely reacted. He was used to warmth, after all, he had been Lily's childhood pillow for years. But what happened next caught the whole family off guard. Oliver pressed his small body against Max's chest and began to purr. Not just a small hum, but a deep, steady vibration that filled the quiet room. It wasn't just a sound, it was a message. "I'm here, you're not alone." For the first time in weeks, Max let out a deep sigh. Not of exhaustion, but of something else. Something the Thompsons hadn't seen in a long time. Relief. The next morning, Oliver's true work began. Max had barely eaten in days, and even when he did, it was only after someone hand-fed him. That morning, Oliver decided to handle things himself. He trotted up to Max's food bowl, tapped it twice with his tiny paw, and meows loudly. Max, laying nearby, didn't react, so Oliver tried again. This time, he climbed right onto Max's back, gave him a single, insistent paw to the head, and let out the most impatient meow anyone had ever heard. The Thompsons watched, stunned. Max lifted his head. Oliver hopped down, flicked his tail, and walked back to the food bowl, turning to see if Max would follow. And for the first time in days, he did. It wasn't much, just a few hesitant bites, but it was something. And something was more than nothing. The next few days, Oliver made it his personal mission to keep Max moving. If Max laid in bed too long, Oliver would nudge him, paw at his ears, or his personal favorite, sit directly on Max's head until he groaned and shifted. But the real breakthrough happened in the backyard. Max hadn't gone outside on his own in weeks. Every time they tried to take him out, he'd hesitate at the door, as if he had lost his sense of purpose. One afternoon, Oliver changed that. He trotted outside first, letting the crisp air ruffle his fur. Then he turned, chirped, and walked back inside. He rubbed against Max's legs, then walked back to the door, this time stopping to wait. Max lifted his head. The family held their breath. Then, with shaky legs, Max pushed himself up. Oliver waited, tail flicking, as Max hesitantly took a few steps forward. When he stopped, unsure, Oliver chirped again, walking a little farther, then pausing. And slowly, step by step, Max followed. From that day forward, their bond was undeniable. Oliver wasn't just keeping Max company. He was guiding him, teaching him to live again. At night, when Max struggled to sleep, Oliver would curl up beside him, pressing his tiny paws against Max's aching joints, as if trying to soothe the pain away. During thunderstorms, Max's greatest fear, Oliver would stay by his side, purring against his chest, his presence enough to keep the trembling at bay. And in the mornings, when the world felt too heavy for Max to face, Oliver made sure he got up. Because Max had given Oliver a home, and now Oliver was giving Max a reason to stay. Seasons changed. The once harsh winter melted into a gentle spring, and with it, Max found a new rhythm to his life. He was still old, still slower than before, but now he walked with purpose. His tail, once lifeless, swayed with quiet happiness. And Oliver? He never left his side. Every morning, the small gray cat would wake first, stretching lazily before hopping onto Max's bed, nudging him awake with an impatient paw. It had become their ritual, Oliver leading, Max following step by step. The transformation didn't go unnoticed. Neighbors who had once seen Max struggle to walk now stopped to watch the unlikely duo, an old Labrador, moving with newfound confidence, guided by a tiny but determined cat. But time, no matter how kind, does not wait forever. Max was now nearly 14. His steps, though steady, became slower. The warm afternoons in the backyard turned into longer naps in the sun. Oliver still let him outside, but instead of long walks, they sat together, side by side, as if simply enjoying each other's presence was enough. And then, one morning, Max didn't wake up. The Thompson family knew the day was coming. They had prepared themselves, but nothing could have softened the ache of losing him. Oliver, however, took it the hardest. For days, he sat by Max's empty bed, letting out soft, searching meows, the same chirps he used to call him forward. But there was no answer now. The house felt quieter, emptier. The absence of Max's gentle presence was a weight none of them could ignore. Then, one afternoon, Oliver did something that left the family in tears. He walked to the door, not to go outside, but to wait. He looked back at the family, then let out his familiar chirp, the one he always used for Max, as if, somehow, he was still waiting for his best friend to follow him just one last time. But even in his grief, Oliver did not give up. The cat who had once rescued a sick old dog now found a new purpose. Slowly, he started spending more time by Lily's side, curling up beside her just as he had with Max. He followed Emily around the house, as if keeping her company in Max's absence. And one day, as Jake sat by the window, lost in thought, Oliver jumped onto his lap, something he had never done before, and let out a deep, steady purr, the same one he had used to comfort Max all those nights. Max may have been gone, but his presence was still there. In the quiet moments, in the lessons he left behind, in the small gray cat who refused to stop loving, even after loss. Because Oliver had never just been Max's guide. He had been his friend, his protector, and now, he was the Thompson family's too. Some friendships change lives, but the rarest ones, they never truly end. And that's all for today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button, and also don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more of these kinds of videos. Thanks for watching.